Good afternoon, and welcome to the Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union 2018 Lunch and Learn series. Today's presentation is brought to you in partnership with Coffee, a nationwide financial coaching and education center focusing on improving the financial health of individuals. As the premier county of Prince George's County, they have joined with Coffee to expand their mission of providing quality financial education to their community and lending insight into credit management, home ownership, and money management. Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union is a full-service financial institution serving anyone who lives, works, or worships in Prince George's County, Maryland. They are one of the county's best-kept secrets with competitive loan and savings rates as well as discounts to national retailers. They currently serve over 16,000 members in the area and welcome you to come and experience the benefits of membership as well. Later on in the presentation, I will display their contact information and answer any specific questions you may have concerning your financial needs. It's not too late to invite your friends and colleagues to join today's webinar. You should have received an email about 60 minutes ago, and in that email is a link that you can pass along. Please note, today's webinar is live and all phone lines have been muted. If you have questions, please feel free to type it into the question box on the right-hand side of your menu bar. All questions are private and will be addressed at the end of our discussion. We will be offering a free 60-minute financial coaching session with the completion of 3 webinars. More information will be given at the end of today's presentation. Lastly, a recording of today's session will be available later on today. Details will be sent to your email following the presentation. And with that, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Charmaine Williams, and I will be your presenter today. So this afternoon's topic is about credit cards and how to eliminate credit card debt. A credit card is a card issued by a financial company giving the holder an option to borrow funds, usually at the point of sale or for cash advance. Credit cards charge interest and are primarily used for short-term financing. Now, a credit card is different from a charge card, whereas a charge card requires the balance to be paid in full each month. So for an example, an American Express card. In contrast, credit cards allow the consumers a continuing balance of debt subject to the interest being charged. A credit card also differs from a cash card, which can be used like currency by the owner of the card. Now, a credit card typically involves a third-party entity that pays the seller and is reimbursed by the buyer, you, whereas a charge card simply defers payment by the buyer until a later date. Now, as you can see on the screen, there are 5 different types of credit cards per se. The first is a secured card. If you were on the last one, I talked a little bit about secured cards, and I'm going to talk about them more detail. And then there's general credit, any type of Visa, MasterCard, Discover. Charge credit, which would be an American Express. You pay it off in full. Store credit, Macy's, JCPenney, Best Buy, and co-branded, which would be, for example, a Best Buy card with a Visa logo. So you don't only have to use it at Best Buy, you could use it anywhere Visa is accepted. So I'm going to talk a bit about the pros using credit before we start getting into how to eliminate that pesky credit card debt. So I just want you guys to know that a credit card is not an invitation to spend money you don't have. Okay? I love to tell everybody I work with that think of the credit card as it's not your money. You're basically taking a loan, okay? And you have to pay it back. So let's say you run up 515% interest and requires a 2% minimum payment each month. Even if you never charge another item and pay the minimum on your account, it will take approximately 6.5 years to repay your debt. Do you really want to be paying a $500 charge for 6.5 years? When you finally paid your debt, you would have paid nearly $300 in interest on your $500 purchase, making your total cost about $800. Okay, so remember, it's not your money and don't spend it if you don't have it. It's a small, temporary, short-term loan, which is what using a credit card or a charge card means. Now, the advantages of having a credit card are you're able to buy needed items now. It reduces the need to carry cash, creates a record of purchases by getting your statements, more convenient than writing checks. I don't know a lot of people now who still write checks. And it consolidates bills into one payment. So if you were to use your credit card for all your groceries and etc., and you know that you budgeted for those, you could pay everything off in one fell swoop because you have everything on that card. Now there are disadvantages as well. Interest, higher cost of items, may require additional fees. Sometimes financial difficulties can arise if one loses track of how much is being spent each month. And then having a credit card, that little piece of plastic, offers increased impulse buying. So you may not have the money for it right now, but you're like, oh, I could put it on my credit card. Super simple. So before you sign up for a card, obviously you want to shop around for the best terms. Read and understand your contract. Always read and understand your credit card contracts. Always read and understand every contract. You may be offered a card that says 0% APR for the first 6, 9, or 12 months. Yay, that's great. I don't have to pay interest for that promotional period. But then afterwards, how much is your interest going up to? 18%, 24%, 29%, 35%? Always read and understand your contracts. Don't rush into signing anything. Take your time, shop around. Once a contract is signed, keep a copy of it because if you have to dispute something later on, you have that information there. Figure out the total price when paying with credit. Again, it's not your money. Find out how much it's costing you. Factor in how much the item is times how much you get paid per hour. How many hours do you have to work to buy that item? Okay? And then make the largest possible monthly payments that you can. Do not get stuck in that payment trap where you only pay the minimum every month. How much are they charging you in interest on those purchases? Okay, so if you were on the last webinar, then you'll know that your balances on your accounts, on said accounts, make up 30% of what your FICO score is. So if you can keep those balances super low, pay as much as you can to pay or pay it off in full every month, that's better for you. We're going to get into a bit of how much credit you can afford. So your monthly payments should not exceed 10% of your net monthly income. So if your take home pay is $2,000 a month, that's take home, not your gross, your net, 10% would be $200. So your monthly debt payments shouldn't total more than $200 per month. And that's not including housing and auto, etc. That's your regular debts. So you want to keep them well below that $200 a month. So that way it's something that is more affordable to you, that you won't have to struggle to pay. Okay? Whatever other debts you have, if you have a mortgage or your rent, your car, your insurance, etc., you want to keep your other debts really low. So it shouldn't be more than $200 a month. Now I'm going to talk a bit about understanding your credit card statement. Okay, so understanding your monthly credit card statement can help determine whether your spending is in line with your budget. And by reading and understanding the fine print of your statement, you can prevent overspending and become more educated on how your credit card program works and then eventually how to pay off that debt. Okay, so one good thing to know is that if you were keeping your balances below 30%, you would probably be able to pay it off sooner rather than later. So the front of your credit card statement will include things like your APR or annual percentage rate, and the APR is a measure of how much your debt is costing you. It is expressed as an annual rate or by the amount of interest you would pay annually. Now remember, the APR is a major key to calculating your monthly finance charges. The higher the APR, the more money that will come out of your pocket to use this card. Okay, so before you sign up for a card or, you look to get yourself in more debt, how much is your APR? How much are you going to be paying to pay for whatever it is you paid for that you bought? Okay, then it's going to have the minimum payment due. And this is the amount of money that you must pay on your credit card each billing cycle to remain in good standing with your creditor. So remember that 35% from the previous webinar is your payment history. Okay, if you're paying the minimum every month on time like clockwork, that's going to help build your score. But at the same time, how long is it going to take you to pay off this debt? It's going to show you your new balance, and this is the unpaid amount or what you still owe. Any finance charges that you may have, and this is what you pay the lender for borrowing the money from their credit card. The finance charge on your monthly statement, again, is the interest that you pay on the balance of your account. It's going to show you your payment due date. Obviously, that means when it's due. And those are just the things to name a few. Now, the back of your statement. Oh, before I forget, the front of your statement is also going to have, now that they have to include it, how long it will take you to pay off what you owe if you only pay the minimum balance every month. That's what's included now on your credit card statements. So you don't want to forget that. It's going to show you how long it's going to take you to pay off the balance that you owe if you only pay the minimum every month. So that's calculating the interest and whatnot into those payments. Okay. Now the back of your statement will have other information such as cash advance fees. That's the fee that you're charged if you use your credit card at an ATM to take money out. What to do if you have a lost or stolen card. You want to obviously report it as soon as you realize it's missing. The number to call will be on the back of the statement. And then remember that if you don't contact them right away, you can be liable for the charges that are incurred. It's also going to have information about any other fees that they may charge you. Now, some credit card companies charge you a fee if you pay over the phone. They may also charge you a fee to cover the cost of reporting to credit bureaus, so that's something you want to look into. Reviewing your account, providing customer service. Sometimes they charge you for reward redemption fees, foreign transaction fees, reward recovery, payment protection, and paper statements. So they may be charging you a small fee to get paper statements in the mail. So those are things that you're going to want to look into, because all of this, all of those extra fees are adding to the debt that you owe on your credit cards. So if they're charging you to provide customer service, which should be free, but you never know, if they're charging you for paper statements, if they're charging you to pay your bill over the phone, those are things you want to look into to see how you can cut out those extra fees to help you get your balances down on said credit cards sooner rather than later. So it's very important to understand what's on your credit card statement. So knowing what to look for will help benefit you in the long run. So the plan is to pay off credit card debt or eliminate your credit card debt. So you want to make a list of who you owe, how much you owe, and which card has the highest interest rate or the highest balance. Okay, because I'm going to discuss in the next slide the two different ways to help pay down this debt. But before you can make a plan of action on paying down debt, you have to know who you owe, how much you owe, and which bill has the highest interest rate or the highest balance. That way you could figure out who's going to get paid off first. Now, once you have that list, again, plan of action in place to take care of your debt. Now, you may have to contact your creditors to work out payment arrangements or perhaps have them lower your interest rate if applicable. Okay, there's nothing wrong with calling them trying to work out some type of plan or arrangement. Now, depending on how long you've had your account open, you've been a wonderful customer, you pay your bill on time every month, but you realize things are getting kind of hard. You know, you're just paying the minimum and you're not getting anywhere. You're not seeing yourself getting out of this debt. Give them a call. They might perhaps lower your interest rates. Again, they don't have to, but the only way you'll know is if you call them. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with calling them to work out some type of plan. Now I'm going to get into more detail about dealing with your bills and the two ways to pay them off in the next couple of slides. So as you can see here, it says to commit paying more than the minimum each month. Now, this isn't discussed in the slides, but I'm going to talk about it just so that you guys can have a better idea. Now, in order to figure out where your money's going, what you're doing with your money, yes, everybody should have a budget in place. You add up all of your income, all of your net income, you add up all of your expenses, and then you see where you're at the end. You subtract your expenses from your income. You're either going to be in the positive or you're going to be in the negative. Now, if you're in the negative, you have to find some ways either to A, increase your income, or B, lower your expenses. And once you have your budget in place and you see where your money's going, this can also help you get your plan in place to pay down your debt. Cutting back on certain expenses like eating out perhaps maybe twice a month instead of 4 or 5 times a month, cutting back on going to the movies, etc. Nobody says stop having fun, period. But if you're committed to paying off this credit card debt and eliminating these debts, sacrifices will have to be made. Now, once you see where your money is going, maybe you can start adding more to the bills each month instead of just paying the minimum, add a little bit more. You have your list that we discussed in the previous slide, who you owe, how much you owe, etc. And now you have your plan of action that you want to take place. So what's going to work best for you? The debt snowball or the debt avalanche? Now, again, if you're serious about getting out of debt, then you have to have a plan on how you're going to achieve that. Okay? Now, the two most popular ways to pay down debt are the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. With the debt snowball, you start small. You pay off the smallest balance first, and then continue with each balance until you pay off the largest and final last. Or you have the debt avalanche. This is where you pay the balance with the highest interest rate and then continue with the next highest and so forth until you pay it off completely. Now, it all depends on you. If all of your interest rates on the cards that you have are all the same, I don't know, I'm going to say 24%, which is a standard for like store credit cards. If they're all at 24%, then you may want to do the debt snowball. You start with the smallest balance and you work your way up to the largest. Or you could even reverse that. You start with the largest balance and work your way to the smallest because the interest rate is the same on all of them. Now, if you have an interest rate at 29% and you have one at 8%, but the 8%, the 29% is your smallest or your middle sized balance, and the 8% is your smallest balance, you need to figure out how it's going to benefit you. Okay? How much interest are you willing to pay while you pay off all of the other little ones with that card that's at 29%? All right? So this is where it comes down to you. Which one, the snowball or the avalanche is going to work best for you. And then once you're finished paying off whichever card you decide to pay off first, you take the money that you were paying them, add it to the next. Then when you finish paying that one off, you take all that money, add it to the next, and you continue on down the line. And then once your debts are all paid off, what you can do is continue paying yourself that money that you were paying anyways. Don't lose out on that money. You could put it towards saving for an emergency or something else that you may need that's coming up. That way you don't have to rely so much on those credit cards and then you don't get back into those credit card traps. Okay. Now, while you're paying off your balances, obviously you still need to pay all of your other obligations. Okay, so you can basically pay the minimum on the others while you focus on paying off either, again, the smallest balance or the highest interest rate first. And then if you have extra, per se, for something else that happened in the month, maybe you saved extra money on groceries, or you didn't spend as much gas as you budgeted for, or you were going to go out to eat but you didn't, take that extra money and apply it to one of the other cards to help get it down. Okay, so those are the two ways that people are very popular and people find to work: the snowball and the avalanche. Now, if you didn't get that information, if it wasn't clear in my explanation, again, it's going to be in your notes that are on the right hand side in your menu bar. So you're committed to paying down this debt. You're figuring out what you're doing. You found out who you owe. There are different ways, again, like I said, that you can achieve said debt payments. So the first is self-help. You've budgeted, you figured out where your money's going, you know what's going on. You can double or triple your minimum monthly payments, or again, try the snowball or the avalanche. Communicate with your creditors. All right. They're a lot more willing to work with you when you contact them than if they have to contact you. So if you're falling behind and they're calling you, they're going to try and reach you, you know, people don't want to answer the phone, they get frustrated. So if you know to yourself you're trying to work out this plan, we all want to be debt free. I know I want to be debt free. I don't want to owe anybody anymore ever again, but I still have student loans to pay. But you know what I'm saying? Call them, contact them. They could perhaps maybe lower your monthly payment while you work this plan of action, the snowball or the avalanche, and perhaps lower your interest rate. Again, you'll never know unless you contact them. And then the next way is to, if it's too overwhelming, don't be afraid to ask for help. You can enroll in a debt management plan. You'll pay them back in full. This is where you combine all your unsecured debts into one payment. They'll work with the creditors to lower your interest rate. You can complete the program anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and your credit score will go up. Yes, it'll take a small hit at first because you're enrolling in a program and your accounts will be closed, but reputable companies work with your creditors to re-age your accounts to get those late payments and whatnot taken off, paying on time, and then it's closed in good standing rather than being closed negatively. And if you were on the last webinar, you'll understand that being closed in good standing, paying as agreed, is a lot better than them having to close your account, send it to collections, or charge it off. So those are a few things that you can do to help eliminate that debt. Now, another thing, when you set your plan of action in place and you decided to, focus on paying down this debt and getting out of it, put those cards away. I don't care if you have to put them in a little box and bury them and put them in the backyard, put them in water and freeze them in a block of ice in your freezer. Anything that's going to help you from using them, okay? You're you're trying to eliminate this debt. That's the whole point of this webinar. You want to eliminate your credit card debt. So you don't want to be paying it off like, oh, well, you know what? I finally paid off this card. So now I have free reign to go and spend it on something. No, put the cards away. Okay? Put them away, leave them alone, lock them up if you do not trust yourself. Cut them in half if you have to. Don't close the account, but cut them in half and have it put away for whatever reason. Then when you finish paying them off, you have choices. You can either A, close out the account. Again, it'll be closed positively in in good standing, but again, your score will take a bit of a hit. What you can do, especially if it's a major credit card, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, pay it off and then use it and pay it for something that you budget for anyways. So for example, myself, I have a Discover card that I don't use on a regular basis to shop, etc. The card sits at home. It's in my drawer in a wallet for stuff that I don't pay attention to or take out with me. But I charge on it every month my Netflix subscription. I budget for my Netflix in my monthly budget. It gets charged to my Discover card. It's well below 30% utilization on my card, and I automatically pay for my Discover card every month out of my bank account. So I'm not tempting myself to go shopping. I'm using my card to keep my card active. I'm keeping my utilization low. I'm paying on time every month, so that's 35% payment, 30% utilization. My balances are low. I'm keeping it open. That adds to my 15% average age of file account. Okay. The other 10% of different accounts that I have open, I have a car payment, that's an installment. I have my credit cards, those are revolving. Okay. So four out of the five that affect my FICO score is me with this Discover card right now. So I'm keeping my balances low. I've decided to pay off whatever else I have. I don't owe on any credit cards right now. All I owe on is my car payment and my student loans. Those are my installment loans, but I have revolving credit open. So once you pay it off in full, you can set it up for something like that. Use it, something that you know you're going to pay for anyway. So I hope that that makes sense with you. Now, if for some reason your accounts have been closed and gone into collections, again, your score's already taken a hit, it's reported something negative, you may want to negotiate. Okay. Now, you can always negotiate to pay the debt. Once the debt goes into collections, you may be able to work out a deal to pay less than the full amount. Collection agencies are always authorized to take something less than the 100% of the debt that you owe. But make sure and get everything in writing before you give them any money. Get everything in writing. This is what you agreed upon. This way they can't come back to you later saying, well, you owe $1,000 and you only paid us $450. Well, that's what we agreed upon. Well, where is it in writing? Don't take anything verbally. That doesn't mean anything when it comes to dealing with debt collectors, etc. Now remember that negotiating, settling, again, your score takes a hit, but if it's already in collections, your score has taken the hit. Then you want to get them from stopping reporting. You want to get them off your credit report. If you can negotiate a deal, get everything in writing, negotiate that deal, and pay them. Pay them either money order or cashier's check. Do not give them any access to your bank account. Your checking account, don't give them your debit card number, don't send them a personal check. Cashier's check or money order. Everything in writing, date that it needs to be paid by, and that way you're finished with them. Okay? Show that you want receipt and proof that yes, it was paid, you've lived up to your end of the agreement, and then you could focus on getting it removed off of your credit report through the credit bureaus. So in the webinar after this, I'll talk about disputing items and writing letters to the credit bureau, and that way we'll know once you finish paying off that debt how to get it removed from your report. Okay? So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the statute of limitations. Now, creditors and debt collectors only have a limited time window in which to sue debtors, us, or consumers for non-payment of credit card bills. Now, we definitely don't want this to happen, so we need to know what our statute of limitations are for our state, and instead of having to worry about that, make sure we have a plan in place to pay off our bills. The limit is set by a state's statute of limitations. So most states, the statute of limitation period on debts is between 3 and 10 years. Okay, so again, you want to check for your state to figure out what the statute of limitations are for credit card debt. Now, debts that have lingered longer than the statutes allowed are often referred to as time-barred debts. Now, if a debt collector tries to sue you to collect a time-barred debt, you can have the suit dismissed by letting the court or judge know that the debt is indeed time-barred and beyond the statute of limitations. Okay, so just check out, go online, figure out what the statute of limitations are for your state, and that way nobody can come after you, especially if it's past the statute of limitations. So again, these webinars, we're trying to keep them within a certain time frame. I'm going to open it up for questions now, so you can start asking questions in the question bar. If you do have a question, please raise your hand so that I know you're typing, because I know not everybody types, 200 words a minute, and they won't be able to get it to me as fast. But if you do have a question, please raise your hand. That way I'll know you're typing, and I'll wait for you. We'll read the question and we'll get an answer to you. If I do not have the answer, I will keep a hold of your questions, find out the answer, and then I could send you an email later on with the answer to said question. If there are no questions as I continue to speak, we will go ahead and finish up and wrap up this webinar, and I hope to see everybody's name again on the webinar at 1 o'clock, which is building and repairing your credit. And again, for that one, I get into disputing items. I touch again on your credit reports, how to build positive credit references. I talk about alternative credit. So I hope it's a lot of good information for you. All right, I have a question. Okay, so can a debt be on your report with multiple collectors? Yes, that is possible. I'm not sure if you were on the last webinar. When you pull your credit report, again, you want to look for inaccurate accounts and duplicate accounts. And you have a tendency to see duplicate accounts if your original account was closed, sold to a collection agency, and then that collection agency sold it to another collection agency, and so forth. So you may see that account on there more than once. Now, the thing with duplicate accounts and collection agencies, only the one who is actually collecting the debt, the one who owns the debt currently, is supposed to be reporting on your report. The other ones should say closed, they shouldn't be open, etc. They shouldn't be open as if they're still collecting. So say for some reason you had a JCPenney card and for whatever reason you stopped paying, they closed your account. JCPenney, of course, when they first close it, will try and contact you to collect that payment. If they can't reach you, they'll sell your debt to a collection agency. Now, when they do that, JCPenney has gotten their money, so they're debt satisfied. So it should show on your report that it was closed or charged off, sold to collections. That's it. ABC collection agency, who they sold it to, now owns that debt and they're trying to get it from you. So they're the ones who should be reporting as an open account. If they sell it to XYZ collection agency, theirs are supposed to show closed as well. And XYZ is the one who's supposed to be reporting that they own it and they're trying to collect from you. But in some cases, ABC is still going to report open. JCPenney may still report open. So then it shows that you owe these three people, and that's not true. So again, this is the reason why it's very important to pull your report from each of the bureaus once a year to go over the information that's being reported. You want to make sure that it's accurate and, because all of those open accounts where you owe them money, it's negative and it's still reporting every month. Okay, yes, it's closed. If it's closed negatively, yes, your score takes a hit, but constantly showing every month that you owe them is bad for your credit. So I hope that that answered your question. Okay, so is a debt relief program a good thing to do? Again, that depends on the individual. Now, if you were to enroll in a debt management program, you do not necessarily have to enroll all of the credit cards that you owe because remember, it's for unsecured debt. So, like if you're having troubles making your car payments, you can't enroll that into a program because that's a secured debt. If you don't pay it, they come and they take back the card. But for unsecured debts like some medical collections, maybe your medical bills, your credit cards, store cards, etc., those are the things that you put into the program. Now, when you do enroll them into a program, the people who you enroll with are going to work with your creditors, they're going to talk to them, but they're most likely going to close those accounts because obviously the whole point of enrolling in a debt management program or a debt relief program is for you to get out of said debt. Excuse me. So they're going to close the accounts. They're going to work with the creditors to re-age your accounts. Okay, if you were on the last webinar, I talked a bit about re-aging. They're going to delete the negative history, like the past dues and the non-payments, and start fresh with your new payment history while paying through this debt management program or debt relief program. So your score does take a hit because the accounts are closed and that affects your average age of files that you have open, that 15%. But in the long run, your score will increase because they're reporting positive payment history, and that's that 35% from before. Now, when you're in these programs, you're not allowed to apply for any new debt, so you can't go out there applying for a new card or applying for a loan because, again, you're obviously in that program to help you get out of debt. So I hope that that helps. I hope that that answers your question. Are there any other questions? Can you explain the difference between a charge card and a credit card again? Okay. So a charge card is a card where you have to pay the balance in full every month. Whereas with a credit card, you can continue to charge and use it even though there's still a balance once you have an available limit. So a charge card is whereas it defers payment by the buyer until the later date. That's the payment due date. Whereas a credit card usually involves a third party entity that pays the seller, and then the person who pays the seller is reimbursed by you, the consumer or the buyer. What's this question? What if a credit card says that they can't re-age the account? They said by law that they have to report both positive and negative actions, and it stays for 7 years from the last action date. Well, like I said, not every um, creditor is going to re-age it. The only way to know is to ask. They're not entitled to re-age it, but they may be willing to work with you or the company that you've hired for your debt relief program. And yes, most negative items stay on your report for 7 years from like the date of last activity or the date of the last action date. So if they can't re-age it, you're pretty much stuck with that negative item on there. All you can do is work on the other accounts that you have open by paying them on time, managing your balances, keeping everything low, and building new positive credit history to help sort of outweigh that negative. Okay, and again, I'm going to talk about that in the next webinar coming up at 1. So I hope that that helps. Raise your hand if you have any other questions. Okay. It doesn't seem that we have any other questions. I'm just trying to give everybody a little bit of time. I don't see anybody's hand raised. I hope I answered your questions. Like I said, again, the majority of this information, along with all of the Fair Credit Reporting Acts, the Credit Card Act, etc., all the laws that are required by creditors, credit card companies, etc., will be in the notes. If I were to get into each and every one of those acts, we would be here for like 3 hours. So I just included them in the notes. That way you guys could go over it at your own pace, read it, and figure out what they're supposed to be doing. Again, you always want to know what laws are on your side. Creditors, collection agencies, etc., the credit bureaus themselves, they don't always want you to know. They don't want you to have this information. They don't want you to have this education because they do break the law a lot, especially debt collectors. And there's a lot of stuff that they can't do. So you want to make sure that you have that information, which is why I included it in the notes for you, and you guys could go over it at your own pace and figure out, what it is they're doing once you start to dispute, once you start to make a plan to pay off your debt, you know what laws are available to you, what protections that you have. That way you understand that they can't, there are certain things that they cannot do to you. So I don't see anybody's hand up, so that means there are no more questions. So again, I want to thank you for attending. Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, you guys catch me all the time. Okay, so where can we find the notes that you're speaking of? So in your menu bar, it should pop up. It'll show you on the side. You can control the volume. It'll show you everybody's name of attendees on there. Well, not everybody's name, but the information of how many people are on the website. Usually it's on the right-hand side of the screen. If you don't see it, that means it's closed. Look for a little orange arrow. If you click the little orange arrow to expand it, you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. You're going to see it's going to say handouts. And in the handout section, there's a PDF document that says how to eliminate credit card debt. And that's where the notes are. If you click on it, you'll be able to open it up and you can save it or print it, however you want to have it with you. Okay? Please let me know that you found it before I continue, or just raise your hand to let me know that you found it. Because if you know where the raise hand button is, the notes should be below it in your menu bar. Got it? Great. Okay, I'm glad you found it. Thank you. So I'm going to continue so that way we can get ready for the next webinar. Again, I hope to see all of you guys on there. Thank you again for attending. To learn more about Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union or to speak with a member service representative, please visit princegeorgescfcu.org or call 800-952-7428 or the number on the screen. To schedule your free 60-minute financial coaching session, please call Coffee at 866-459-5165. And if you enjoyed today's webinar, please be sure to visit princegeorgescfcu.org/lunch and learn to check out a list of topics for the year. Thank you guys again. Hopefully I'll see you at 1 o'clock for the next webinar. If not, have a great day.